most part, more or less, who still has not grasped the concept of functions. I'm not going to go over functions today. I am going to do a brief review about cursors. So it involves functions. So I assume that all of you know about functions, but if not, let me know so that I will get into a bit more detail. Okay, so let's have a quick implementation session so that we can implement something. So I want you guys, if you have access to your machine right now, I want you guys to like start up MariaDB or MySQL of your choice. And let's have a quick implementation class. Okay, so let's have a banking database and let's look into the account database. I really want to do one thing today. Okay, so this particular entry. Okay, so this is my account table in my banking database. And these are basically account numbers, branch name, and the balance that that particular account has. I really want to delete this particular account, that is A1000 Wichita, this one thing. So let me just delete that real quick. We'll come to this thing, why is it's there later, essentially. Ah, okay. Okay. Yes, sec. Okay, so let's say that I want to write a query. So this is my account table, right? The account table has account number, these numbers, branch names, these branches, and the balance that each account has. I want to write a function, and I know that you guys are already fed up with this particular question, but let's say that I want to find out the average balance of all my accounts. Can someone tell me what query should I use to get me the average balance of my entire account table? Can someone tell me that? Average balance for all my account queries. So let's say that I basically want average balance for all accounts. Give me a query that does that. Select average balance as average balance from account. Is Devon correct, guys? Is Devon wrong? Yes, right? Okie dokie. So if I run this particular query, I get to 22,584.5. That seems to be correct. Let's say that given this is the average balance, I want I want the number of users that have a balance higher than this average balance. Basically, I want the rich users. Get me how many rich users there are. Basically, users that have a balance higher than the average balance. So can I write something like select, basically this gets me the average balance. So I need to basically find out the number of users that has the average balance, that have their balance larger than, greater than this particular balance, right? So I can say count, let's say star, from account, get me just the rows, where account balance greater than this thing. Would this work? Would this give me the number of users or the number of account holders that have a balance larger than the average balance? And secondly, also answer yes or no, and also answer, is this a correlated or a decorrelated query? Why is it correlated? For every account, there is no for every account branch or for every something, right? Is this dependent upon what we are trying to get here? Does count star depend upon the individual branches or anything? Yes, but can we just compute this thing separately and just have a variable value for this thing? For example, if we had a view, or if we had a separate view for this thing, if we had a separate value, right? If we had a separate value for this thing, nothing changes, right? Even though this is within the where clause, this particular entry is a subquery, but it has nothing to do with any of the details that we are trying to get from this query here. So this is not a correlated query. Does everyone understand that why it's not a correlated query, even though it is within a where? Yes, long, exactly. So your database would basically compute this in advance, keep that, and basically count the number of rows there. So you see that there is no connection between what we are trying to compute versus what the predicate is. Makes sense? So this is not a correlated query. Very good. So if I run this, what? What's the, oh, just balance, my bad. Okay, so we see that there are 21 people who have a balance that is greater than the average balance. The average balance was 22,000 something, right? So does this query make sense to everyone? Let me copy and paste this query in the chat window real quick, and let me paste it in this thing as well. So basically, number of people who have a balance greater than the average, the query, right? So if this makes sense, let's now write a function for it. Given this particular query, can we write a function that does this? Yes or no? Would you guys be able to write a function for it? Let me bring out the function lecture real quick. Where was that? Right, create function. And so if we can, tell me the number of parameters that this function would require. So let's call our function as, drop, not drop, but essentially function. Let's call our function, I don't know, numRich, and let's say create function numRich, Let's also have that as this thing. So create function numRich. This function would basically get me the number of rich people that the account table has. Would I need to pass any parameters to this thing? If I'm still going to select the number of I use this function to find the number of rich people. Would this function take any parameters? Balance. What if, well, that is a nice way of thinking about it, but can we just write it so that this function directly accesses the account table and then get me, yes, if I specify the table in the function, then I don't need the balance data, right, Yaswanti? Have to define rich, exactly. I'm going to assume that's a yes. Okay. So let's say that we don't have any parameters. What is this function going to return? What is the data type of what it returns? Integer, numeric, character, what? I need the number of rich people. Integer. Very good. Begin. Before that, I also need to set the delimiter because it gets really mad. Delimiter is this thing. And let's say that I reset the delimiter to semicolon. Okay. So begin, and I now need to write out this particular query. So essentially I can say copy this thing and I can just save this particular query, select count star and insert into this thing. Basically, let's say that declare a variable called count rich that is of type integer, that has a default, let's say a default value of 0. Select rich, this particular thing, return rich, and semicolon. And then we can just call this function as what? Select num rich. Right? Exactly. Right. So how do I save the value of this select statement's value inside a variable? Exactly. What's going on? What did I miss?